Well, hello, welcome back, everybody. People talk a lot about Generation Z at these kind of events, and I thought rather than get a panel of people talking about what Generation Z means for them and how they prepare for what they're interested in, let's actually hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. So we're really, really pleased that we've got four young people. They are open talent call finalists for Formula E. They're finalists in a talent call to become presenters at a Formula E tour. And their names are Tati Baker, Derin Adetosoye, Aiden Vincent, and Alexa Rendell. And they'll be introduced by Katie Traxton of Formula E. So over to you, Katie. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this panel at Host City, Get Set for Gen Z. Now, the theme of this year's Host City is the big restart, recovery with a purpose for the digital age. And while I know something about purpose, as the Chief Communications Officer of Formula E, the all-electric racing series founded to counteract climate change and accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles, now with an extended all-encompassing purpose to race for better futures, I am not, although I would like to be, a digital native. So in order to get a bit of insight into how we really can recover with a purpose for the digital age, I have recruited 4 friends to join me for this panel. And these 4 friends actually double up as the finalists for Formula E's Open Talent Call for presenters. Earlier this year, Formula E released an open letter to the world, which said that one of the things we were committing to was to create greater opportunity for underrepresented groups in our sport, both on and off the track. Now, on track, we will do that in a long-term, substantive, intentional way, but it could take generations to affect a real change. Off the track, we got started immediately, and we launched a talent call in August this year to find 18 to 24-year-olds with raw, untapped talent who would join our team of presenters from Santiago, Chile, next January. So here are the 4 finalists: Derin, Tati, Alexa, and Aiden. They're relieved because I've already stumbled over words, so what can go wrong for them? And the first question I would like to ask them is about, well, it kind of relates to 2020 and something that I've observed this year through all the kind of cultural movements, through all the repercussions of coronavirus, which I think have affected everyone's lives, literally everywhere. If there's one thing that's unifying this year, is that the people who've come out on top are those who've worked together. And we've seen, to my mind, something pretty unprecedented in communities around the world of people supporting one another. For Gen Z, a generation under a microscope who kind of live through social media, it can be difficult sometimes not to be in competition. And the 4 guys on this call quite literally are in competition to win one prize to be a Formula E presenter. And yet, the thing that I admire most, having got to know them a little bit and worked with them, is how actually they're one another's greatest cheerleaders. So the first question I wanted to ask, and we'll see who's going to offer to answer, is what exactly have you learned from one another, and what are those lessons you're going to keep with you forever?
I'll go first. So as a whole, we are all so uniquely different, which I love. And so when we went on the Valencia trip, there were so many takeaways that we were able to gain from one another. Just to focus on one person, I'm gonna pick something which I've learned from Alexa. I find Alexa to be such a she's like, oh, I think Alexa is such an intelligent, hardworking individual, and that really came across on the trip. But one of the biggest takeaways which I personally got from her is the beauty of being inquisitive. Alexa asked a lot of very interesting questions on the trip, not only to, the Formula E team, but to us as well. And I found that led to very interesting and insightful, conversations, and we were able to gain so much as a result of it. And I think, as children, we're all quite naturally inquisitive and curious, and we ask lots of questions. And then as you kind of grow up, it can in some ways be discouraged, or, you just sort of keep your questions to yourself and do it through observation. I know that's something that I've personally done. So to see Alexa ask really great questions and see the result that has led, and like how much more knowledge and information we're able to gain from that is something which I'm personally going to take away from me, because it just goes to show that like you asking questions is like, it's chill, you know, just do it. I don't know why I didn't, like I felt discouraged to do it before, but yeah, I love it. And I think it really just adds a lot to conversation. And yeah, so Alexa, that's something that you probably weren't expecting, but it's a big observation which I made about you. And yeah, it's definitely a lesson that I'll be keeping with me.
Thank you. I feel like I ought to continue the circle, and I will do Tati. I think we actually ended up working together on a project whilst we were out in Valencia. We had to do an Instagram takeover story, and there were two sort of key things, and I think they really go hand in hand. Was firstly her genuine just positivity when things were perhaps not going completely swimmingly. She was just ready to get going with it. It didn't matter if it was terrible. As long as we looked happy doing it, people would enjoy watching it. And I think that was something that, as a bit of a perfectionist myself, I kind of realized that as long as you look like you're enjoying it, people will enjoy watching it as well. I thought that was really special. But also when we were doing that, I realized genuinely just how good she is with social media, that I know how to use it as someone who posts a bit like a mum sometimes, that I understand how to share with my friends. But I think being able to share in a way that is designed, that you're intentionally sharing a part of your life to further your career, and when you're talking about it, is really quite an art. And it's really impressive how you know the kind of content to take that will look good. You know how you're sharing things. And yeah, I think it's almost like part of creating a brand at this point of your life. When you're trying to become a presenter and trying to get into the world, you have to make sure that everything represents who you are. And I think you have a real knack for that.
Thank you. I feel touched. Yeah, well, you're amazing to work with as well. I mean, that was so much fun. Like, it was great to work with you. And I have so many things I could say about you, but I think I'm going to pick on Aiden right now. Aiden. Honestly, I don't think I've ever met anyone like you. I'm speaking to you right now. And as soon as we got back, that's what all I've been saying to everyone is like, Aiden is like nobody I've ever met. Like, your energy is unmatched to anybody else I've ever met. And like, your energy and your passion for what you do, you can just tell so well, which is so important, I think. As Alexa said, like building a brand for yourself and making sure you are really kind of showing who you are early on. You are so unique in that way that you bring your passion to everything you do. I mean, I've got a little story when we were in Valencia, outside practicing our interviews, and we were all nervous. I mean, obviously the nerves were on and it's pressurizing, but as you were doing it to me, however nervous I knew you were, or however nervous I knew you felt, you just did not show the nerves at all. And I feel like I admire that a lot, is when through the nerves you can still show your personality. And I think that is a huge part of what you do. Yeah, your energy is just amazing. Definitely.
Oh,
it's like, I've been thinking about it a lot. So yeah, definitely that.
Need you around more often. You're so nice to me. All right, I guess I'll sort of
on camera thing.
I'll sort of come full circle now and talk a bit about Derin. But yeah, over the course of Valencia and stuff, I've learned a lot from all three of the guys. Really, I mean, they're all so different, like Derin was saying. But particularly Derin, we got to work together in Jaguar doing the social takeover, and I learned a few main key things from her. Firstly, just her confidence. I mean, as you saw from her talk, and she's so like clear, calm. Like everything she says is with purpose and makes you want to listen to her and gets your attention. So something I struggle with sometimes is the confidence in speaking. So it's definitely something I'm trying to take from her and move forward. And I think all of us can sort of relate to that a little bit. Also, her organisation skills are so good. She knows what needs to be done, when it needs to be done by. You know, she's very strict on deadlines, which is good. You know, organisation in all parts of your life is important, and especially if you're trying to get a career in something like this. So definitely trying to take a leaf from her book in regards to that. Sometimes I'm a bit unorganised, but one of the main things I sort of was surprised by that I learned from her, sort of just looking at social media and stuff like that, is she's always doing something, you know, on her LinkedIn or whatever it might be. I'm always seeing her on these panels or on her podcast talking to people. So it's just sort of reinstating in my mind how important it is to say yes to all these different opportunities and just get yourself out there. So Derin's definitely a good example of what we're going to try and get to. in that respect, I think.
Well, thank you guys.
Aiden,
And
that's so sweet.
there's lots I've learned from you too, and I think one of the important things actually about the time we're living in is that it's much less hierarchical than it used to be, and there are far fewer unwritten rules about how in organizations you only learn from people senior to you, and we obviously listen to and respect those people. But one of the things when I joined Formulary earlier this year, and was interviewing with my boss, who's the CEO, that I was interested in was him looking for senior leaders who would be empowered to run their part of the organization, but also were still open to learning and wanted to learn from him, but wanted to learn from their team and recognize that you can take those lessons from everywhere. Just like I just learned from Alexa that I probably use social media like a mum. One thing for our audience, we've mentioned Valencia a lot. Valencia actually is where the final of the Open Talent Call for presenters was hosted last week. It was pre-recorded and the results will be coming out very soon. So please do follow that. And if you aren't, of course, already, I'm sure everybody is already following. Now, on to the next question. I'm going to pick up with Aiden because he was last time. If like me, you do post like a mum, this isn't a concern. But for those prospective influencers out there, there's kind of this weird tension, right, between needing to be yourself on social media, but also working out what is going to allow you to connect with a large community who hopefully you will be able to engage with and influence in the right way. And sometimes as you're testing and learning, it can seem like you go through 100 iterations. How, Aiden, did you find your vibe, and how would you describe the way you engage with your community on social?
Well, personally, I've been making and posting videos online and stuff like that since I was like 12. So over the years, I've pretty much tried every single sort of way to get more audience engaged and just sort of grow the audience, I guess. Like back in the day, I used to send my link out to like random people I knew. It's like, oh, check out my videos, you might like it. But I sort of found that the more naturally it grows, the better for most cases. Like I hate the term influencer because it sort of just makes you feel like that my audience are just something to try and sell people to, or not, that's not the word I'm looking for, you know what I mean? Like they're not real people, when just to me, every view, subscriber, like, comment is a real person. And that's what I try and focus on now, because I think when I take the time to comment on a video, that means I must have really engaged with it. And that's why I make sure I go out of my way to comment on all the other people's comments, reply to it all. And you sort of build a sort of community within your comment section or on your socials, because you see same sort of names coming back week after week, video after video. And yeah, you just sort of build that community vibe. And I feel by doing it so naturally and not trying to force it or be fake with it, and sort of be yourself in the comment section as well, you sort of not only get a better connection, like a real human connection with your audience, where you can have like inside jokes or you make the jokes or whatnot. You also get like, they're more powerful, if you know what I mean. So like I made a video recently about my local racetrack being closed down. It was an issue that's close to my heart and obviously quite localized. Like not many people would like relate to it really on like a local scale, but because I have my audience, they all supported me and they like me as a person. They care about what I care about really. So they all signed and shared the petitions, got it out there. And it was quite touching in a way, that they cared about something that mainly only affects me and people that live in my area, despite the fact they live wherever really. So I think just growing it naturally, not sort of like forcing it. If you treat your audience like real people and then be yourself to those real people, you form a sort of real friendship, and it's the engagement and the positive like repercussions of that will come naturally. Because I feel the more you try and push it and the more you try and just focus everything on getting the audience maximized to sell stuff or be the best influencer or whatever, it's not real. They can see right through it. I think people don't give audiences enough credit sometimes. They're more than just a number on a screen. They are an individual person. So if you treat them like that, good things will come, I think.
Well, there you go. That's certainly a lesson. I'm not ever going to become a Gen Z influencer, but nonetheless, it's an interesting piece of information. So one thing that you focused a lot on, Aiden, was being real. And I think, you know, in brand world, we like to use the word authentic. But being authentic, relatable, real is incredibly important if you want to connect with people in general in life, but certainly online where they don't know you and they need to believe there's this true connection. But I guess one thing that you guys have recently experienced is what it's like probably for the first time to work with a brand partner. And then you get this situation where you need to be true to yourself. You need your audience to trust what you're saying, your community, but also you've suddenly got this brand partner that you're trying to represent and work with. So I don't know, who wants to talk to me about what it's like to work with a brand partner and what makes a good brand partner as well as a good influencer working with that brand?
I'll go ahead for this one, definitely, because I feel like it's something which I feel quite strong about, working with brands. And I think Aiden touched on it really well. It's, you have to be honest and you have to be genuine, because people can see right through you. I mean, a lot of the time I'd say fake it until you make it in certain aspects of life, but with working with a brand partner, that is the biggest no. I feel like your audience really have to trust you. And as Aiden was saying, they are just real people. I mean, we are all audiences of different things, and people can see right through the fakeness. And if you don't believe in the brand, like, you have to really love and believe in the brand you're working with, and not just work with a brand for money or for exposure or whatever, because it should never be about that. Like, and also doing your research is such a big thing. I feel if you genuinely believe in the morals of the brand and what they give to their audiences, once you do your research and actually start to really enjoy the brand, or you already do, your audience will pick up on that, definitely. And you can tell. I think all of us can tell when somebody is not being genuine. You can tell in everyday life, but especially if you see an influencer, I hate the word influencer, but if you see a content creator working with a brand, and it's just so awkward sometimes. You can just tell, like, if somebody's, you know, really into their sport, and you kind of see them just sat there with their, like, fit tea or whatever, and it's just like, use my code for 20% off. It's like, it's not genuine. So definitely making sure you actually believe in what you're selling, if you are selling it, or who you're working with, is definitely very important.
Thank you. And so I guess the thing that's interesting for me, and maybe a lot of the audience, no judgments on the audience, is that I didn't, I think luckily, grow up with social media, and there's no audience engagement piece about my age, so we're not going to go there. But I say luckily because actually social media is a fantastic thing. It's so good. I've worked all around the world. It allows me to keep in touch with people on any different time zone. We can share in one another's lives. In 2020, like, what would we have done without social media? I kept thinking what it would be like without a smartphone attached to me living through this year and lockdown. But nonetheless, there is a kind of flip side of social media where we all see everybody else's lives that typically look perfect, because that's the bit they show, but we kind of get convinced that's their entire life. We are all scrutinized by other people and ourselves 24/7 if needs be. Like, we say kind of tongue in cheek, but it's a thing that you just go and stalk someone as soon as you've heard of them. How do you navigate that? How do you navigate that actually on a serious note in terms of mental health and well-being? And how do you navigate that kind of in a more light-hearted way, just getting through it and seeing it as a nice accessory to your life, but not your real life?
Yeah, I'll jump on this. I think it's really a fine line between what is authentic and what you're actually willing to share. That, as everyone's been saying so far, having authenticity on your social media is just absolutely key to creating an audience, creating a good partnership with the people that follow you. Even if it's just your friends, people will see right through you if you spend 3 days in a row posting yourself with photos that you actually took a year ago of you in amazing makeup going on a night out. They're gonna know that that's not what your life is, and it will just completely disengage them. But also, when I talk about authenticity, you don't want to be sharing every single aspect of your life. It's not healthy, and all of a sudden, for me anyway, it feels like I'm giving too much away to the world. Like, I do still really value my privacy and my own interests, and I think by restricting what you share online, you can still have conversations with your friends. That if I want to tell someone about the new guy I'm dating, I don't need to put it all over my social media. I can give them a ring and tell them really excitedly all about it. And for me, that's my way of managing my mental health and my relationship with social media, is managing what I put out there. That I feel like if I'm sharing everything for everyone to make their own opinion of, to judge, it is just too much. Whereas actually there's really fun parts of my life that I do love to share, that I think other people will be genuinely interested in, that people beyond my own sort of following might find interesting. That's what, for me, I prefer to focus on, and it stops any sort of oversharing, overthinking about whether or not I am sharing too much into my life.
I think probably on my one Facebook post a year, I'm not crossing that line, but it's certainly a good, it's a good parameter for people to have. And I will reflect on it when I post on the 31st of December. So I guess my last question is actually to finish on something that's quite close to my heart, and one of the reasons that I wanted to work at Formula E, because I believe it's pretty much baked into the reason Formula E exists as an organisation as well. And, you know, to use a term that we kind of overuse, because what does it actually mean? But we kind of get it. It's about inclusivity. And at Formula E, we really believe in celebrating people for who they are, and in making sure that it's their unique achievements that we talk about and we share, and that's fantastic. I love it. And I also personally think that the things that make us individual are much more interesting than the things that make us the same. And that's why every conversation with a new person's really cool. I have this slightly odd ambition that if you could live forever, I could have coffee with everyone in the world just to hear their stories. But nonetheless, in the world, and it's just a fact of life, right? And it starts even when we're at school. There is often a pressure to conform. There's a pressure to be a certain way, to fit a certain mold, to look a certain way. And it can be very difficult not to succumb to that ourselves. And it's also quite a weight, an obligation, a burden on all of us with the communities with which we engage, whether it be in real life or online, to make sure that they feel empowered to be themselves. And, you know, what would your advice, who's got a great nugget of advice for me on how you can achieve that?
I believe I have a great nugget of advice, kind of echoing what you've just said about everyone being different, and that's what makes, you know, conversations and speaking to people interesting. I'm a big believer that in today's society, where there is so much pressure to conform, and, you know, you may feel inclined to want to do or be like everyone else, you just need to remember that there's no one else like you, and that's what will set you apart. I know it sounds really cliche, but in today's world, like, there are so many carbon copies of people who are trying to emulate other successful people or whatever, and it's just like, specifically on social media, if you can just be uniquely yourself and just stay authentic and genuine to yourself, then that will attract an audience like no other. Because, you know, specifically in the realm of content, if there's like 100 pieces of content and 99 are all the same format, same vibe, and then there's someone else that's doing something different, they're making different jokes, everything is just sort of more unique, you're going to naturally gravitate towards that person because they're doing their own thing. So I think a strong part of empowerment definitely comes from knowing that there is no one like you. I actually have a quote. So I was listening to a podcast yesterday and I heard this and was like, wow, this is a great quote. So essentially it is, people can steal your recipe, but the sauce won't be the same. And I love that. I think it just speaks volumes in itself. Like, there is no one who can be exactly you. And I think use that to your advantage, specifically in the realm of having so many other competitors or just having so many other people around. So I think it's really refreshing, and with that knowledge and insight that there is no one else like you, you can take empowerment from that and you can take the pride. So just be yourself. I know it's super cliche, but be yourself and know that there is no one else like you, and I think that you'll go really far.
I think you're right, Derin. And I think one of the things that's special about you guys is that while you come as an awesome team, there's also nobody quite like each of the four of you, and none of you are scared to recognize that you have a voice, and using your voice as a force for good can be the most incredible thing. It's what we try and do as a sport. It's what I've seen each of you do as individuals. And without playing some kind of Valencia bingo, like how many times can we get it into one session at Host City 2020, in Valencia, meeting you all for the first time, what I took away was just the most incredible energy. I know it's something that was said about Aiden earlier about his energy, but really in all of you, there's at Formulary, we talk about our spirit, which is positively charged. And after 3 or 4 days of working flat out, I was pretty shattered. I don't know if that's the good thing to admit, but I was pretty shattered. And I kind of met all of you guys and had the opportunity to spend the evening with you. And I came back and said to everybody, oh my goodness, they're like personifications of being positively charged. I feel so energized. I could just go again from the start. And I think that's one of the things about you, and also about anybody who's going to make a difference in Gen Z, is that you are the future. You will be writing the future. You will be making the future. And we need to work together in order to achieve that. But certainly when it comes back to this big restart, recovery with a purpose in the digital age, we've managed to get that in there again, the theme of Host City this year. I'm really glad that you could all join me, and I wish you all the best of luck for whoever is the winner of the talent call, and I'm sure all of you will have fantastic careers going forward. Thank you to everybody who has come and watched this panel. I hope to see you again next year in person in Glasgow. Maybe we'll all be there. In the meantime, have a lovely day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katie, and thank you to all for the open call talent finalists there. Some great social media tips there for us Gen X or whatever age you might be in the audience. I think we can all learn a lot from your tips there about authenticity and being proactive, being selective about what you post, and most importantly, be yourself. Also, great takeaway there about how important you find the morals of brands that you identify yourselves with, and that's something that I think that that many of the stakeholders in Host City can take away. I think is how to make sure that their values are going to chime with yours. So thank you for that.